Hello, English learners, and welcome. I'm your host, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Excited to chat about English learning today.
Today, we're really digging into a topic that, well, affects so many people,
Yeah.
learning English, but specifically, how to learn it naturally.
Mm-hmm.
We've got through, a whole stack of sources, research papers, practical articles, guides, all looking at this idea.
Yeah, and our goal here really is to pull out the most important bits from all that material. The core ideas, maybe some surprising things, and definitely the useful advice, specifically for you, the listener.
Exactly, because so many learners feel stuck,
Right?
maybe bogged down memorizing grammar rules or, these endless word lists that just don't seem to stick.
And the sources we looked at suggest there's another way, a path that's often, well, maybe overlooked, but potentially really effective. Learning English more like how you learned your very first language.
And that sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Simple, maybe even fun. Certainly less stressful than trying to cram abstract rules.
Definitely.
So today we're going to try and unpack what natural learning really means based on these sources.
We'll look at why it seems to work so well. There's some interesting brain science involved, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and we'll clear up some common myths, those ideas that might actually be stopping you from trying it.
And then the practical stuff. 5 concrete tips you can literally start using today.
Plus, some common mistakes to watch out for. And we'll wrap it all up with, hopefully, a bit of motivation for you.
So yeah, get comfortable, maybe grab that cup of tea. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first things first. What are we actually talking about when we say natural learning?
Yeah.
What do the sources define it as?
Well, fundamentally, it's described as trying to mimic how children learn their mother tongue.
Right, so not sitting in a classroom focusing only on grammar rules from a book.
Exactly. It's more about soaking up the language through listening, watching, reading, and importantly, actually using it in real everyday situations.
Like how a baby learns. They don't get grammar lessons.
Precisely. They hear language all around them, they see what's happening, they start experimenting with sounds, trying to communicate needs or wants. They, slowly piece it all together from that constant input and that messy practice.
So for learning English, it's about trying to create that kind of rich environment for yourself, wherever you happen to be.
And a really big piece of this, emphasized in the sources, is about mindset, specifically letting go of the fear of making mistakes.
Ah, yes, that's huge.
It is messy when you start. You're going to say things wrong, you'll misunderstand things, and the sources say that's not just, okay, it's actually necessary. It's part of the process.
So it's about using English as a tool, like a living thing you use to communicate and maybe even enjoy things with, rather than seeing it as just a set of rules you have to master perfectly before you even open your mouth.
Right. And that shift, just changing how you think about it, can actually lower your anxiety. And when you're less anxious, your brain is apparently more open, more receptive to learning.
That makes sense. It feels less like forcing facts into your brain and more
Yeah.
like growing something.
Yeah, one source used that analogy like growing a plant. You give it the right conditions, regular water, sunlight. So for language, that's consistent engagement, interesting input, and time, patience. And it just grows, naturally expands.
The secret ingredients being sort of daily practice, finding input you actually find fun, and yeah, a good dose of patience.
Focused on understanding the meaning, the context, not just isolated words or perfect grammar right away.
Okay, so that's the what. Now, the really interesting part, why does this method work so well, according to the sources? What's going on?
Well, this is where it touches on how our brains are actually built. We seem to be incredibly well equipped for learning language, especially when we encounter it in meaningful situations, not just abstract rules.
So when you hear English over and over again in, say, a conversation or a movie, your brain isn't just hearing sounds.
No, it's subconsciously analyzing everything. Patterns in word order, the rhythm, the intonation, and it's connecting all that to the meaning it can grasp from the situation, from the context.
The sources called it language absorption.
Yeah.
Maybe not like a passive sponge, more like your brain's pattern-finding machine running in the background.
That's a good way to put it. It's spotting common phrases, figuring out grammatical structures, learning vocabulary, all without you having to consciously sit down and memorize the rule for, say, the present perfect continuous.
It's building an intuition for the language.
Yes. You hear a phrase used in different ways, different contexts, and your brain starts to get a feel for how it works and what it means, often before you could explain the rule yourself. The goal is getting to a point where it feels automatic, not like you're constantly translating in your head.
Which is basically fluency.
Yeah.
Right. speaking and understanding without those constant pauses to search for words or check grammar.
And another huge factor the sources highlight is enjoyment. If the process is fun, you're watching a show you love, listening to music you enjoy, reading about a topic you care about, you're just much more likely to stick with it.
Consistency is key.
Absolutely. And that consistent, enjoyable exposure is exactly what feeds that pattern recognition engine we talked about.
Plus, you mentioned the fear thing. If you're less worried about mistakes in this natural setting, your brain isn't wasting energy on anxiety. It's focused on understanding and communicating.
Right. It creates a much better environment for learning to actually stick.
So it's about working with how your brain naturally learns language, using patterns, context, reducing fear, making it enjoyable, aiming for that automatic feeling.
Exactly. Leveraging your brain's strengths.
Okay, but before we get into the how-to, let's quickly tackle some common misunderstandings. Things the sources say really hold people back.
Good idea. There are definitely some persistent myths out there.
What's the big one they often start with? Myth number one.
Usually it's you have to live in an English-speaking country to learn naturally.
Right. And the sources.
Pretty much unanimous.
Oh.
Not true anymore. Maybe it was harder in the past, but now, with the internet.
Immersion is everywhere.
Basically, yes. You can access endless authentic English. Movies, music, podcasts like this one, YouTube on any topic imaginable, news, online groups. You can build your own English world right where you are.
Create your own immersion bubble, kind of.
Yeah.
Change your phone settings, label things in your house.
Exactly. The tools are there. You don't need the plane ticket necessarily.
Okay, myth number two. Natural learning is slow. It's not for serious learners.
Yeah, the idea that it's somehow less rigorous, the sources argue the opposite. It might feel less structured, maybe slower at the very beginning compared to memorizing lists.
Right.
But it builds a much deeper, more functional understanding of the language. Rote memorization often gives you fragile knowledge, easy come, easy go.
Yeah.
Natural absorption builds something more robust, more intuitive, that actually lasts and works in real conversation.
So it's like building a stronger foundation, even if laying the groundwork takes a bit more time initially.
Precisely. Patience pays off with more durable skills and, ultimately, better fluency.
Got it. And the third myth.
This is a big one. You need to understand everything you hear or read to learn this way.
Oh yeah, that feeling of, I missed a word, I'm lost.
Exactly. And it can be really discouraging. But the sources say, no, you don't need 100% comprehension. Think about babies again. They definitely don't understand every word at first.
They get the gist.
Right. Your brain is amazing at using context, the situation, the speaker's tone, pictures, what you already know to figure things out. The sources suggest aiming for maybe a 60, 70, 80% understanding. If you get the main idea, you're learning. Your brain will often fill in the gaps over time with repeated exposure.
So don't get hung up on every single unfamiliar word. Focus on the overall meaning.
Yes, trying to understand every single word is exhausting and usually makes people give up. Just keep listening, keep reading, focus on the message.
So the takeaway is, don't let these myths stop you. Natural learning is possible anywhere. It's a powerful way to build real skills, and you don't need perfection to start.
Well said.
Okay, now for the really practical part. Based on everything we've read, what are some simple, concrete things you can start doing, like today?
All right, tip number one from the sources, listen to English every single day.
Immerse your ears. Podcasts, music, YouTube videos, maybe even cartoons or simple shows.
The key is consistency. Even just 15 or 20 minutes daily makes a difference. It gets your ears tuned to the sounds, the rhythm, the intonation of spoken English.
And this is crucial. Pick stuff you actually enjoy.
Yes. If you're interested in the topic, whether it's cooking or sports or history, your brain pays way more attention. Learning almost becomes a side effect of doing something fun.
Okay, tip one, listen daily to things you like. What's tip two?
Read easy English regularly. Find things at or maybe just slightly above your current level.
Like what? Children's stories, simplified news articles, subtitles.
All of those are great. Graded readers are specifically designed for this. Reading reinforces the vocabulary and structures you might hear. And reading easy stuff builds confidence, makes it less intimidating.
And the sources mentioned reading aloud.
Yes, many sources recommend that. It connects the look of the word with its sound, it trains your mouth muscles for pronunciation, and you hear yourself speaking English. It strengthens multiple connections in the brain.
Good one. Okay, tip three.
Speak without fear, right from the beginning.
Ooh, that's often the hardest part for people. Does it mean finding a native speaker immediately?
Not necessarily, though that's great too. The sources suggest starting simple. Talk to yourself. Describe what you're doing. I am walking to the kitchen. I am opening the fridge.
Narrate your life in simple English.
Exactly. Or repeat phrases you heard in a podcast or video. Practice simple sentences. The point isn't perfection, it's just activating that speaking part of your brain and getting comfortable making English sounds and forming thoughts.
Focus on just getting the idea out, not perfect grammar.
Right, confidence comes from doing, not from waiting until you're perfect, which, well, never really happens anyway.
True. Okay, tip 4.
Use English in your actual real life. Make it functional.
How so?
Change your phone's language setting to English. Your computer, too. Write your shopping list in English. Keep a simple journal in English. Label things in your kitchen or office with English words.
So it's about weaving it into your daily routines.
Yes. When English becomes a tool you use for everyday tasks, it stops feeling like this separate subject you study and starts feeling like a normal part of your life. That helps make it more natural.
Makes sense. And the final tip, number 5.
Be consistent and be patient.
We keep coming back to that, don't we?
Because it's fundamental, especially for natural learning. The sources really emphasize this isn't an overnight trick. It's a gradual process, like growing that plant or like learning to walk.
You don't expect instant results.
Exactly. Small, consistent effort, maybe just 20 or 30 minutes a day, mixing, listening, reading, maybe a bit of speaking, adds up hugely over time. Much more than trying to cram for hours once a week.
And try not to compare yourself to others. Everyone's journey is different.
Yes. Focus on your own small wins. Did you understand a bit more of that song today? Did you manage to ask for directions? Did you read a whole paragraph without stopping? Celebrate that progress.
So even just picking 2 or 3 of these tips and doing them consistently will make a real difference over time.
Definitely. That's what the sources suggest.
Okay, so we have the tips. But even with a good approach, people can still stumble. What are some common mistakes the sources warn against?
Yeah, there are a few traps. Mistake number 1 is expecting results too fast.
Impatience again.
Right. It links back to tip 5. Language learning, especially this natural way, takes time. Your brain is building complex connections. Getting frustrated after a month because you're not fluent is setting yourself up for disappointment. Trust the process.
Focus on the journey, not just the destination. What's mistake number 2?
Just consuming content without ever trying to produce anything yourself. So only listening and reading, but never speaking or writing.
The input is crucial, but you need output too.
Exactly. Input is how you absorb the language, build that intuition, but output, trying to speak, trying to write, is how you activate it, solidify it, learn to retrieve it, and use it actively. You need both. Even just repeating phrases aloud or writing simple sentences counts as output early on.
Input plus output equals real learning. Got it. And the third mistake?
Letting perfectionism stop you.
Worrying too much about mistakes. Perfect grammar. Perfect accent.
Yes. That fear can just paralyze you. You end up saying nothing because you're afraid of saying it wrong. Remember the core idea of natural learning. Communication first. Getting your message across, even imperfectly, is the goal. Mistakes aren't failures, they're just feedback showing you what you can work on next.
Progress over perfection.
That's the mantra. Avoid those traps. Impatience. Input only. Perfectionism. Stay consistent and you'll get there.
Okay, so let's just take a moment to talk directly to you, the listener. You've stuck with us through this whole deep dive, which means you clearly care about learning English, about finding a better way. And honestly, that commitment, that's already a huge win.
Absolutely. And we know, and the sources acknowledge, that some days it feels slow. Some days you'll listen to something and feel like you understood nothing. Or you'll try to speak and your words just won't come out right.
That's completely normal. It really is. Every single person speaking English fluently today went through that phase, probably many times.
But the important thing to remember, which the sources highlight, is that every little bit counts. Every minute you listen, every slightly awkward sentence you manage to say, every new phrase you figure out from context, it's like laying another brick.
Building that house, brick by brick. Some days it's just 1 brick, maybe some days it's 10, but every brick makes the wall stronger.
Even when you feel stuck, your brain is often still processing things in the background, making connections you aren't even aware of yet. Just showing up consistently keeps that engine running.
So if you have one of those days where you just feel like quitting, take a breath. Maybe step back for a moment. Then just pick one tiny, enjoyable English thing you could do. Listen to one song, read one short news item, say one sentence to yourself, and tell yourself, I can do this.
Because you can. You're not alone in this. You're tapping into your brain's amazing natural ability to learn language. Keep listening, keep reading, keep trying to use it, even in small ways. You are doing great. We and the sources we've looked at really believe in this process and in your ability to succeed with it.
So here we are. We've covered quite a bit in this deep dive on learning English naturally.
Yeah, we have. And I think the main takeaway, the core message from all these sources, is really about shifting your focus
Away from just rules and perfection.
and towards consistent, enjoyable progress. Engaging with English as a living thing through listening, reading, and, yes, trying to speak and write.
Embracing it as communication, as exploration, maybe not just study. And crucially, not letting the fear of mistakes hold you back, but seeing them as part of the journey.
Exactly. Learn from them, don't fear them.
And maybe a final thought, something interesting that comes out of all this material for you to consider.
What's really fascinating is this idea that when you consciously let go of that pressure to be correct right from the start,
When you prioritize just consistent, meaningful exposure and, having the courage to communicate, even imperfectly,
you actually tap into a deeper, more fundamental, more intuitive way that our brains seem designed to acquire language.
leading not just to technical fluency, perhaps, but to an understanding that feels more integrated, more genuinely part of you.
Yeah, like the language truly becomes yours. Something to think about.